A few months ago, I got an email from a viewer named Henry in Houston. Henry is 63, just retired, and he was proud of his portfolio. He had built it over 2 decades, 14 different ETFs, 3 dividend funds, 2 bond funds, a tech fund, an energy fund, a REIT fund, a gold fund, 2 international funds, and a couple more he bought because a coworker mentioned them years ago. Henry believed more funds meant more protection, more diversification, more safety for his family. But then he did something most people never bother doing. He actually looked inside those 14 ETFs, and what he found surprised him. His 3 dividend funds, funds that looked completely different on paper, held about 65% of the same companies: Coca-Cola, Verizon, Merck, Chevron. The same names kept showing up in fund after fund. Henry wasn't diversified. He was paying for the illusion of diversification. And here's the part that really stung. All that overlap was quietly diluting his income every single month. So how many ETFs do you actually need in retirement? Not what a commission-based advisor would recommend. The honest answer. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact number that works for most retirees, and the part most people miss. It's not about the number at all. It's about one simple test that changes everything. Quick note, I'm not a financial advisor or government employee. Everything here is for educational purposes only. For your specific situation, always check with a qualified professional. When one ETF is all you need. Let's start with the simplest possible answer. Can just one ETF really be enough? Most people think that sounds reckless. One fund? Isn't that putting all your eggs in one basket? Here's what they don't realize. A single ETF can hold thousands of stocks. Take VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. It holds over 3,500 companies, large cap, mid cap, small cap, every sector of the American economy. Tech, healthcare, energy, financials, all of it. If any single company goes bankrupt tomorrow, it barely moves the needle. Your money is spread across thousands of others. And the cost? Just 0.03% per year. On a $500,000 portfolio, that's $150 in annual fees. That's it. $150 for the entire US market. Now, here's who this actually works for. Say you're 65. Social Security covers your rent and groceries. A pension handles the rest. You don't need your portfolio to pay you right now. You just want it to grow for later. In that case, VTI alone can be your entire equity side. One fund, maximum simplicity, almost zero cost. But here's the thing. Most retirees are not in that situation. Most retirees need their portfolio to actually pay them every month, every quarter, real income they can spend. And that's where one ETF falls short. So what's the right number? For most retirees, it's probably smaller than you think. The 3 ETF sweet spot. A retirement portfolio has 3 jobs: growth, income, stability. That's it, just 3. And you can cover all 3 with just 3 ETFs. Here's how. Fund number 1, VTI for growth. You already know this one. Over 3,500 US stocks. Over time, it keeps your portfolio growing ahead of inflation. That matters because retirement can last 25 or 30 years. Your money has to keep up with rising prices. Fund number 2, SCHD for income. That's the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. It holds about 100 high-quality companies that pay strong dividends. Names like Coca-Cola, Merck, Texas Instruments, companies that have been raising their dividends year after year. Right now, SCHD yields about 3.3%. That might not sound exciting, but here's the part that changes everything. SCHD's dividend has been growing roughly 10 to 12% per year for the past decade. Think about what that means. Even without buying a single new share, your income goes up every year. An investor who bought SCHD 10 years ago at a 3% starting yield, they're now earning over 7% on their original cost without doing anything. That's real compounding, not in your account balance, in your paycheck. Fund number 3, BND for stability. That's the Vanguard Total Bond Market ETF. It holds thousands of investment-grade bonds, treasuries, corporate bonds, mortgage-backed securities. When stocks drop, bonds cushion the blow. and BND costs just 0.03% per year. Now, let me show you what this looks like with real money. Say you've got $500,000. You put 40% in VTI, that's $200,000 for growth, 30% in SCHD, that's $150,000 generating dividend income, and 30% in BND, $150,000 for stability. So let's do the math. At current yields, VTI pays a small dividend, maybe around $100 a month on that amount. SCHD brings in roughly $400 a month. BND adds another $300 or so. Altogether, you're looking at about $1,400 to $1,600 per month in combined income. And because SCHD's dividends keep growing, that number climbs every year without you buying another share. 3 funds, 3 jobs, 0 overlap. Let me tell you about Sandra and Jim from North Carolina. Both 64. They started retirement with 9 ETFs, 3 dividend funds, 2 bond funds, an S&P 500 fund, a tech sector fund, an international fund, and a high-yield fund Jim picked up from an investing blog. Looked great on paper. 9 funds, lots of variety, very diversified. But when they compared their holdings, their 3 dividend funds shared about 65% of the same companies. They were tripling their exposure to the same stocks without tripling their income, and they were paying 3 sets of fees for the privilege. They simplified to 3 funds, and here's what nobody expects. Their monthly income actually went up because they stopped diluting their yield across overlapping positions. Most people add more funds because it feels safer. Smart retirees focus on fewer funds that each do a different job. Before I show you the next level, quick question for you. How many ETFs are in your retirement portfolio right now? 3? 5? 12? Drop your number in the comments. I read every single one. When 4 or 5 ETFs earn their spot. 3 ETFs handles it for most retirees. But there are 2 specific situations where a 4th or 5th fund actually earns its place. Situation 1, you need monthly income. SCHD pays quarterly. For plenty of people, that works fine. But if you're living off your portfolio month to month, paying bills, covering groceries, handling prescriptions, you might want a fund that pays every 30 days. That's where JEPI comes in, the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF. JEPI yields around 8% right now, and it pays monthly. Let me put that in dollars. Say you carve out 15% of a $500,000 portfolio for JEPI. That's $75,000. At an 8% yield, that one fund alone generates roughly $500 a month. But here's what most people don't know, and it matters a lot. JEPI earns part of its income by selling stock options. The IRS taxes those distributions as ordinary income, not qualified dividends. Big difference. If SCHD pays you $1,000 in qualified dividends, you might owe 15% in federal tax. That's $150. If JEPI pays you $1,000, you could owe 22 or 24%. That's up to $240. Same income on paper, $90 less in your pocket. That's why account placement matters more than most people realize. JEPI belongs inside a Roth IRA, where it grows and pays out completely tax-free, or in a traditional IRA where you at least defer the tax. Holding JEPI in a regular taxable brokerage account, you're handing a chunk of that 8% yield straight back to the government. Situation 2, international diversification. VTI only covers U.S. stocks. If you want exposure to Europe, Asia, and emerging markets, you add VXUS, the Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. One fund, the entire world outside America. So, 4 or 5 ETFs can make sense if each one has a distinct purpose. But here's where things go wrong. People add a 4th fund, then a 5th, then a 9th, without ever checking what's already inside the funds they own. Here's the myth. More ETFs means more diversification, which means more safety. Here's the truth. After 3 to 5 purposeful ETFs, every extra fund you add is more likely to overlap with what you already own than to protect you from something new. Research shows that diversification benefits plateau after about 100 to 300 stocks. VTI alone holds over 3,500. Adding a dozen more on top of that rarely adds meaningful protection. And 2 popular dividend ETFs can share 60 to 70% of the same stocks. That's not diversification. That's clutter with extra fees. So now you know the range, 1, 3, maybe 4, 5. But there's one more piece, and it matters more than any of those numbers. Here's what I mean. The only question that actually matters. The right number of ETFs is not a number, it's a test. Every fund in your portfolio should answer one question. What job does this fund do that none of my other funds already do? Growth, income, stability, monthly cash flow, international exposure. Those are the jobs. Once every job is filled, you're done. Adding more doesn't make you safer. It makes your portfolio harder to manage and your income harder to track. Think about it like staffing a small business. You need a few great people in clearly defined roles. You don't need 14 employees who all do the same thing and get in each other's way. Let me tell you about Ed from Tampa. Ed is 67. When he sat down to review his portfolio, he had 11 ETFs. He couldn't explain what half of them were for. So he ran the test. He wrote down one job next to each fund: growth, income, stability, international. 3 of his funds were all doing the same job, large-cap dividend stocks. 2 more were both U.S. bond funds with nearly identical holdings. He was paying fees on 5 funds to do the work of 2. Ed consolidated to 4 ETFs, each one with a clear purpose. His portfolio got simpler, his income went up, his stress went way down. Here's what I want you to do right now. Pull up your portfolio. Write down the job each fund does. If 2 funds share the same job, one of them needs to go. Every ETF in your portfolio needs a job description. If it can't earn its spot, it doesn't deserve your money. If someone you know has a retirement portfolio full of funds they can't explain, share this video with them right now. It could save them real money every single month. Tell me in the comments, after watching this, are you thinking about simplifying your portfolio, or do you feel good about where things stand? I'd love to hear your plan. If you're building retirement income and want to stay ahead of changes like this, subscribe to this channel. I cover everything that protects your income and helps it grow.